Welcome back to another explainer. I am so thrilled you're joining us today because, well, we are tackling one of the absolute most complex, deeply frozen conflicts in modern history, the divided island of Cyprus. Today, we're putting a very specific lens on our analysis. We are going to impartially unpack the perspective of the Turkish Cypriot community. We'll be looking directly at the source material to really understand their historical narrative, their core political aspirations, and what they actually expect for the future of the island. Okay, let's dive into this. The map of modern Cyprus is completely defined by the UN buffer zone. You'll often hear it called the Green Line, and it slices right through the middle, separating the Greek Cypriot south from the Turkish Cypriot north. This physical division is a stark reminder that the current reality stems from a profound, historical breakdown of trust. It's essentially a geographic manifestation of decades of political gridlock. To make sense of all this, here is our roadmap for today. First, the partnership and its collapse. Second, security and the guarantor state. Third, the struggle for political equality. Fourth, the two-state paradigm shift. And finally, number 5, future expectations and coexistence. All right, let's move right into section 1, the partnership and its collapse. To really understand the modern demand for a two-state solution today, we actually have to rewind and examine the historical trauma of the 1960s. In 1960, Cyprus gained independence from Britain as a bicommunal partnership state, shared equally between Greek and Turkish Cypriots. But just 3 years later, in 1963, during events known as Bloody Christmas, that power-sharing partnership violently collapsed. This pushed the Turkish Cypriot community into besieged enclaves. Fast forward 11 years to 1974, following a Greek-backed coup, Turkey militarily intervened. And finally, after years of failed negotiations, the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, or the TRNC, was unilaterally declared in 1983. Now, to grasp how the Turkish Cypriot leadership views this history, we really have to look at this quote from Rauf Denktaş, the founding president of the TRNC. He said, "The Greek Cypriot leaders chose to destroy this partnership state. The 1963 onslaught on the Turkish Cypriot community was the inevitable result of the Greek Cypriots' pursuit of the dream of enosis. Enosis, by the way, means union with Greece." This quote perfectly illustrates the core Turkish Cypriot belief that the original republic was intentionally sabotaged. And that brings us to a concept heavily referenced in our source material, the usurpation narrative. This is basically the foundational belief within the Turkish Cypriot community that they didn't just casually leave the government in 1963, they were violently pushed out. In their view, the Greek Cypriot leadership illegally hijacked the state apparatus and essentially usurped the internationally recognized title of the Republic of Cyprus. For Turkish Cypriots, this left them completely stateless and isolated for over a decade. Which leads us perfectly into section 2, security and the guarantor state. Because of that deeply ingrained historical memory from 1963 to 1974, security isn't just a talking point for Turkish Cypriots, it is an absolute non-negotiable priority. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how diametrically opposed the views of the 1974 events are across the Green Line. The Greek Cypriot perspective, which it's worth noting is the view held by much of the international community, is that 1974 was an illegal military invasion leading to an ongoing occupation. But on the flip side, the Turkish Cypriot perspective is that it was a totally legitimate, life-saving peace operation, legally sanctioned by Turkey's status under the 1960 Treaty of Guarantee. We are quite literally looking at two entirely different frameworks of reality here. And that historical lens, it translates directly into modern public opinion. According to recent December 2025 polling data from the Center for Migration, Identity, and Rights Studies, nearly 69% of the Turkish Cypriot public still considers the continuation of Turkish security guarantees acceptable. It really emphasizes that for the everyday civilian population, that active security umbrella provided by Turkey remains a vital, deeply reassuring source of safety. Okay, let's move to section 3, the struggle for political equality. This phrase, political equality, is arguably the most fiercely debated jargon in the entire Cyprus conflict. For the Turkish Cypriot community, it doesn't mean strict numerical parity. I mean, they know they are a demographic minority on the island, but they vehemently reject being treated as just a privileged minority within a Greek-dominated state. Instead, they demand an equal partnership. They want effective participation in decision-making at the highest levels to prevent what they fear would become a tyranny of the majority. For them, equality is the absolute bedrock of any legitimate government. So what does that actually look like in practice? Mechanically speaking, it's all about specific institutional safeguards. We're talking about things like a rotating presidency, ensuring the Turkish face of the state is internationally visible. It means requiring at least one positive vote from a Turkish Cypriot representative for any major federal decision, and, crucially, retaining veto rights on vital issues. These are the tools they believe guarantee their survival as co-owners of the island. And for decades, they actually pursued these mechanisms within a federal framework. Documents from the 2014 to 2017 negotiations highlight that the Turkish Cypriot side, alongside their Greek Cypriot counterparts, were actively working toward a bizonal, bicommunal federation. A single sovereign state, sure, but with strictly shared power. But that era of negotiation has profoundly shifted, which brings us to Section 4, the two-state paradigm shift. The modern geopolitical landscape has completely changed following the failure of those very talks. After literally decades of exhausting federal negotiations, the pivotal moment arrived in 2017 with the collapse of talks in Crans-Montana, Switzerland. Both sides blamed each other, of course, but the fallout was immediate. Ankara and the current Turkish Cypriot leadership officially abandoned the federal model. They argued that federation talks are just a dead end serving to maintain their international isolation, and they pivoted to a strict demand for a two-state solution. So the crucial point is understanding the difference between the old goal and the new demand. They shifted from demanding political equality, which remember means co-ownership within one unified state, to demanding sovereign equality. This new paradigm requires that the TRNC be internationally recognized as a completely separate, equal, sovereign state before any new negotiations can even get off the ground. Now, that is the official political line. But what about the actual people? Let's transition to Section 5, Future Expectations and Coexistence. Despite this massive, hardline diplomatic shift toward a two-state solution at the political level, recent CMIRS polling shows something fascinating. A strong majority, 62.2% of the Turkish Cypriot public, still desperately wants a settlement agreement. They are just exhausted. Exhausted by the unresolved status quo and the incredibly heavy toll of international isolation. And when you dig into the nuance of that polling, it reveals a deeply pragmatic population. Over 79% say they would actually still accept a bizonal, bicommunal federation. More than half are totally open to renewed coexistence with Greek Cypriots. And get this, over 36% are even willing to accept territorial concessions, provided it guarantees their political equality. It really shows that while they absolutely demand to be treated as equals, significant portions of the public remain remarkably flexible on the exact framework if it finally brings peace. Because right now, their daily anxieties are frankly overwhelming. Their core concerns revolve around the continuation of this frozen conflict. They face severe economic and international isolation. I mean, they're unable to trade directly or even fly directly to most of the world. Meanwhile, they're watching the internationally recognized Republic of Cyprus in the south enjoy full EU benefits, forging energy and military alliances that leave Turkish Cypriots feeling encircled and, in many ways, punished. Which leaves us with this final, overarching tension of the entire conflict. Can true political equality actually be achieved as an internal safeguard within a single shared Cyprus? Or, after decades of bitter division and distrust, does it fundamentally require the sovereign recognition of two entirely separate equal states? It's a question that continues to define the fate of the Eastern Mediterranean. Thank you so much for exploring this complex issue with me today, and I'll see you in the next explainer.